We begin with fears of an Iranian attack on U.S. soil. An FBI memo warned Iran may try to launch drones at California in a seaborne surprise attack. However, law enforcement and intelligence officials are clear there is no immediate threat at the moment. This memo stemmed from an apparent tip that surfaced before the conflict even began. Last night, President Trump said it was being investigated and claimed Iran as being, quote, absolutely decimated.
They are pretty much at the end of the line. Doesn't mean we're going to end it immediately, but they've got no Navy, they've got no Air Force, they've got no anti-air traffic, anything. They have no systems of control. We're just riding free range over that country.
CBS News has exclusively learned the Iranian drone attack, which killed 6 U.S. soldiers in Kuwait, was more severe than previously revealed. Here, you can see before and after images of the site. Sources say dozens suffered injuries, including brain trauma, shrapnel wounds, and burns. And the first week of the Iran war cost the U.S. approximately $11.3 billion. This is according to sources familiar with a meeting between Pentagon officials and lawmakers. And on the takeout last night, Major Garrett asked Republican Congressman Dan Bacon if he's comfortable with the rising costs.
Yes, if they could detail the costs, but I support the war, though I know that's risk. There's risk involved and it's unpredictable. We've already seen some of that. But this war was way overdue.
And Democratic Senator John Fetterman also joined the takeout to discuss the Iran conflict. He told Major what's been accomplished so far is remarkable.
I do think it's very effective, and I do think it's moving towards the kinds of appropriate outcome. They've been unable to inflict any significant damage on American assets or in Israel at this.
Now we continue our team coverage for you this morning. Ramy and Inocencio is tracking the fighting in the Middle East from London. But let's begin with CBS News correspondent Natalie Brand at the White House. Natalie, good morning. What are we learning about the extent of injuries in that Kuwait attack, which killed 6 soldiers?
Yeah, CBS News, according to sources speaking to CBS News, dozens were left injured in that same attack, injuries ranging from brain trauma, burns, shrapnel wounds, concussions. And we've also learned that more than 30 service members remain hospitalized as of Tuesday night in locations including San Antonio, Texas, also here at Walter Reed outside of D.C., and others at the medical center in Germany. Now, that retaliatory strike by Iran happened in the early days of this war on March 1st at a tactical operations center. CBS News' 24/7 spoke to former CENTCOM commander Joseph Votel about that type of setup. Take a listen to his comments.
Where these soldiers were was a logistics hub that is used to support our military operations across the region, a very critical location for us. And so you have a concentration of troops in this particular area, and these are not unknown locations. They're generally well-established locations, so it's not difficult to target.
Now, earlier, CBS News reporting by our James Laporta revealed that that operations center was a triple-wide trailer, not uncommon for a U.S. base abroad. But 3 U.S. officials speaking to James questioned whether that building, that structure was adequately fortified. It has around it what's known as T-walls, steel-reinforced concrete structures around the operations center, but not protecting the top of it, or, protecting it from an attack from above. So that raised some concern, according to James's reporting. A Pentagon spokesperson responding to that CBS News report described it as a secure facility fortified with 6-foot walls, saying every possible measure is being taken to safeguard our troops. Errol.
And Natalie, it really underscores the risk that all U.S. service members face. In remarks yesterday, President Trump described this whole operation as an excursion. As you know, he's also called this a war. Listen to what he had to say when asked to clarify.
Well, it's both. It's both. It's an excursion that will keep us out of a war. And the war is going to be, for them it's a war. For us, it's turned out to be easier than we thought.
Natalie, are we any closer to understanding what the president's specific goals are here?
Well, administration officials and the Pentagon have consistently repeated some key objectives, including destroying Iran's missile capability, their production, destroying the Navy, security infrastructure, making sure Iran never has a nuclear weapon. But the president declined to answer a key question yesterday before leaving for his trip to Ohio and Kentucky. He was asked, can you declare victory if the supreme leader still remains the Ayatollah's son? And he said he did not want to comment on that. He's not yet answered the question of what happens if the current regime remains in place and who he would like to see instead. He did later in the day said he'd like to see somebody in there that knows what they're doing, that can build a country. But there's a lot of questions that remain about what happens, with the current leadership there. Errol.
That's right. Remember Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth saying the regime change is not the point, but the regime sure did change. Perhaps not. We'll keep watching all this closely. Natalie, thank you. Let's jump now to CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio. He's tracking all the latest developments out of the Middle East from our London bureau. Good morning, Ramy. So much is still unfolding in this conflict. What is the latest out of the region?
Errol, yes, good morning. Day 13 and more strikes on ships and oil assets across the region, notably Iraq, Dubai, as well as Oman here. And the price of oil is reacting as we would expect, jumping back up above the $100 a barrel mark overnight for Brent crude, which is the international benchmark. Right now on your screen, that's one attack there. Iraqi territorial waters is what we're looking at. Iranian boats appear to have hit two tankers that were in some kind of process of a fuel transfer. You can see the plumes there, black smoke and fire lighting up that night sky. We understand at least one person has been killed, but nearly 40 others were thankfully rescued. But Iraq has shut down oil operations there. Out of Dubai, the country reported strikes overnight on land, with one on a skyscraper, a residential building, and then another one off the coast, a container ship there near the international airport of neighboring Bahrain. And then Oman there got hit yesterday. Drones hit fuel storage tanks. This was at a port on its southern coast. And I point this out because ships with oil there, if they go there, they don't have to go through the Strait of Hormuz to get to this port. But this has gotten more important with the strait effectively closed. But basically, if Iran keeps hitting this other port on the south side, that makes shipping oil even more difficult. Iran attempting to inflict more financial, economic, energy pain. We're also seeing more reports of attacks on Kuwait's airport today. Bahrain, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia all saying today they're intercepting more missiles and drones.
And so, Ramy, that is the Iran versus Gulf states kind of front of this conflict, as well as Kuwait. But there's another front, that's Israel's conflict with Hezbollah, which is funded by Iran. What's the latest on that front?
Yeah, we're day 10 into the amount of time that Hezbollah got into this Iran war. Back and forth strikes again. And what we're seeing is that Hezbollah and Iran say that they've carried out what they're describing as a joint missile and joint drone strike on more than 50 targets, it says, including Israeli bases, 3 military bases, they say. Early this morning, too, Israel hit Beirut's seafront there, where people who evacuated from southern Beirut, who were told to evacuate from southern Beirut by Israel following Israel's warnings to leave Hezbollah's stronghold of Dahiya. Many of them were sleeping there. Videos there show 2 cars were apparently hit. Officials say at least 8 people were killed there. And of course, there are more strikes going on in southern Lebanon, and Israel has told people there to evacuate. About 800,000 people so far have been displaced.
All right, Ramy Inocencio with all the latest headlines for us from the conflict in the region. Ramy, thank you. For an in-depth look at Israel's role in this war, we now want to chat with Daniel Shapiro. You see him on your screen there. He's the former U.S. ambassador to Israel and a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. Mr. Ambassador, good morning. I just want to start with a gut check. Israel's fighting Iran alongside the U.S., but are Israel's specific objectives, as far as you can see it, fully aligned with U.S. goals? And if so, what are they?
Good morning, Errol. Well, I was in Israel for the first week of the war, And despite daily 6, 8, 10 missile warnings, both from Iran and from Hezbollah, I would say there was grim determination by most of the Israeli public to continue because they see this as a maybe once in a lifetime opportunity to try to bring down a regime in Iran that has been their adversary and in some way torturer for decades, calling for Israel's destruction, arming all the groups like Hezbollah around it that have sent tens of thousands of rockets and missiles in, sponsoring terrorism, pursuing nuclear weapons. So I think among Israelis and even the Israeli leadership, they would like to continue this until the regime is weakened enough. They're right now hitting regime security organs like the Basij and the IRGC that were crushing the protests from January in hopes that the people of Iran will return to the streets, rise up, and overthrow the regime.
And so, Mr. Ambassador, how will any of us know when Iran has been weakened enough from Israel's perspective? President Trump has said this war could end soon. He reserves the right, though, to strike harder. At this moment, does it appear Israel is close to achieving its specific goal in weakening Iran enough?
I think it's very difficult to read that from outside. Obviously, the Ayatollah's son has been appointed, although he hasn't been seen, but he's been appointed as the new supreme leader. It appears the main structure of the regime is holding. There's an ideological core. There are hundreds of thousands of people under arms who are really fighting for their survival, both the regime's survival and maybe their own personal survival. So I think it's unlikely the regime is going to crumble in a short period of time. And I do see the possibility that there's going to be a real divergence of goals between Israel, which would like to continue and try to pursue that objective, and the United States, which now President Trump has to deal with rising oil prices, supply chain disruptions, markets dipping, economic and infrastructure damage among the Arab states who are on the receiving end of so many of these attacks. I think the president is more likely to look for an off-ramp and a way to declare mission accomplished, that the degradation of the main capabilities, missile, nuclear, and naval threats that Iran poses have been accomplished, even while a weakened regime is left in place.
Well, Mr. Ambassador Daniel Shapiro, we really appreciate getting your insight on this and that frank, walkthrough of the state of play and how we just don't know yet if objectives have been achieved. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you.